chillin', serial killing, pre-cold villains on the mic, got you reeling. 5-star rated from the floor to the ceiling. If you catch a 1-star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ on the ones and twos, by the name Beelzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all over two, and prepare to hear the legend of the Straight Chillin' Crew.
What up, nerds, and welcome to another slay of an episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name is Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode 463, recorded Monday, February 19th, 2024. Tonight we're talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer from 1992. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got your boy Randeezy. What's up, man?
Randu!
How do, my boys? How we doing? We ready to get into some delightful early mid-90s vampire action today?
Early, mid, late, pre-post 90s, whatever it
Somewhere
is.
within a decade called the 90s.
Yes. Ever relevant. Ever relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to getting weird with it. Next up, calling in from Seoul, South Korea, we got your boy Soju. What's up, man?
Oh, hello, fellow kids. It's your boy Totally Tubular Stains. Early 90s. I believe this is 92, Randu.
This is like that meme.
You just did a whole Steve Buscemi from 30 Rock, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Fellow
I'm ready for the 90s. Yeah.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Hello.
Yeah, my boy Luke Perry, he's up in here trying to pretend like he's young. I love the 90s old casting. That's what we're here for. Ever since The Craft, that shit always gets me now.
I don't know. Well, we'll get to it.
We will.
We'll get to it. I got the numbers ready. I got the receipts. It's okay.
Oh,
Don't worry
good,
about
good. Thank God for that. Last but not least, making her triumphant return to Straight Chilling, everybody, welcome back, Rachel. What's up, Rachel?
Hi, I'm also here pretending to be young. This is your 90s casting.
All right.
We're all old. It's fine. Thanks for sitting in with us again. It's always a pleasure having you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite. I'm so excited to talk about this very formative film from my childhood.
Right. Oh, very cool. You have all the podcasts in the world. Why don't you take a minute and just let everybody know about all the cool horror-related content that you churn out?
Yeah, well, obviously, I'm one of the hosts over on the Zombie Girls Podcast Network, where we have a variety of shows for your listening displeasure, pleasure. I'll leave that up to you. Probably the one that we're most focused on right now is More Deadly, which is the one where this perfect fit for the show. It is the show where we focus on women-directed horror films. We actually have not covered this movie yet, believe it or not. But most recently, we did an episode about Lisa Frankenstein, and we interviewed Diablo Cody and Zelda Williams about it, which was a ton of fun and kind of a dream because I'm like a huge Jennifer's Body fan. So yeah, that's kind of what we've got going on over there. There's also like Zombie Girls and Stream Queens, which is on a little bit of a pause right now. And then occasionally I pop up on Bloody Good Horror. So if you are not sick of me yet, there are plenty of opportunities to hear these dulcet tones.
Awesome. Yeah, be sure to check out all of Rachel's stuff, man. That's an impressive list for sure. I can't imagine how busy you are.
I mean, I stay busy, which is good because then the darkness can't get in. You stay busy.
You keep moving. You just got to keep.
It's cheaper than therapy, and only slightly less destructive than like a full-on drug addiction. So yeah, podcasting is how I roll.
Oh man, some like Greek myth shit happening in your life.
Podcasting cures what ails you. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Well, awesome. Yeah, before we get into the main event, let's tackle just a little bit of housekeeping real quick here. Here's another reminder. We do have our March poll currently posted on our Patreon website, and if you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this March. The theme for March is Welcome to Hell, and the movies you're voting between are As Above, So Below, Hellraiser 2, and Jason Goes to Hell.
Whoa, Bomb, how those numbers looking?
Hellraiser's still in, Hellraiser 2, aka Hellraiser Deuce, is still in first place, 48%. As Above, So Below, 35%, and Jason Goes to Hell with 17%.
Oh, G-Baby's call last week is making a little bit of a difference. And
Yeah, a little
As
bit.
Above, So Below. All right.
Yeah, so
The lobby is active.
As always, I'm sure there will be some last-minute changes.
can't wait for it.
Always.
Can't
I
wait for it
can't
to
make
happen.
things in advance. Cannot make promo graphics in advance. That's the lesson
Nope.
learned.
No.
Oh, no.
Randy.
I know.
Yeah, get those votes in for the end of February. We'll see what we're talking about in March. We are dropping mini casts every other Friday over on Patreon. Last Friday, we dropped one about Night Swim. Juice was talking about the Haunted Pool movie. And next up on the 1st of March, we're going to be dropping another one on Suitable Flesh, and that is me talking about Joe Lynch's latest body swap movie. Super sexual.
Steamy,
yeah.
Stevie.
What? No.
It will make you have uncomfortable feelings about the kid from The Babysitter, so buyer beware.
Yeah.
Depending on how depending on how much of a
is-
creep you want to feel like.
I guess he's 18
Well.
now. Let's all hope.
Let's not assume, Bob.
Let's hope.
I'm going to go out on a limb.
Hope.
And,
I'm going to stay off of that limb personally.
just hope
It's
and pray.
European. What?
You know, so yeah, check that out over on Patreon, and that's really all we got going on for Patreon. Juice, I think you got some stuff going on, right?
Yeah, so for the month of February, we have a new Creature Comforts coming out. This is our spin-off show where we talk about horror-adjacent films. And this month, heading into the kind of spring season, getting ready for March and Easter specifically, I'm joined by our good friend Nicole, and we are talking about Passion of the Christ as a horror adjacent film. She does her, she's been having her special on religion and horror on her Light and Shadow podcast. And so I thought she'd be the perfect guest to kind of discuss that film and kind of how horrific it is in some ways. So yeah, she was a great guest. And, I think she's worked through all her husband troubles now, so she's good to go, so I'm just messing with Nicole.
Wow.
Here. when we were
Wow.
throwing all
An
her-
inside joke that no one here or
her
listening is privy to.
her public life on blast. I'm just teasing Nicole. So,
Okay, no,
yeah,
I can't wait to listen to that.
yeah,
Gotta get prepped for the sequel.
Yeah, Nicole's the perfect guest, and it was a very interesting discussion. So thank you, Nicole, and keep an eye out for that next Monday. On our YouTube page.
The sequel,
Tub Christianity.
the sequel to Passion to Christ, coming out
Passion to Christ.
this Easter.
Dude, there is a sequel
Christ with a
coming
shotgun.
out. I
know.
was surprised to find.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I've never seen Passion of the Christ. I've avoided it intentionally.
It's a particular kind of film.
Somebody skipped Sunday school.
True.
We know who the heathen is around here. Eh,
We
Bob?
do.
Yep.
It's me.
Purely and simply evil.
Yeah, I'll take it. Awesome, man. Yeah, that I look forward to that as well. I'll listen to your review of it instead of watching the movie.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Bob.
Oh yeah,
That's the move.
yeah. Anything else you guys want to mention?
A little bit more about Nicole's personal life. No, I'm just.
Yeah.
Skip to the end.
Rad. Okay.
He's in a full panic right now somewhere.
Oh my god.
Furiously
He just
texting
shot
you.
up from the couch.
Oh God! What? No!
Oh God!
I'm keeping Nicole on her toes.
Justin's about to get Chris rocked over here.
Oh fuck! Man, that would be good for our numbers, though. You go for it. You go for it.
Yeah.
As the hand reaches into the screen out of nowhere, disembodied slap.
It is Will Smith's hand. It is.
Damn.
Yeah, I think it sounds like our house is clean.
I think it probably pretty clean.
This house is clean.
All right, let's get into the main event. We're talking Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
Bob, I saw you had this box.
I do. I have it right here.
Did you get it
on
for this
Blu-ray.
cast?
Yes. Yeah, I did. This was a new one for me. I hadn't seen it before. But we'll get into all that. Yeah. So this is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie that came out before the TV show in 1992, rated PG-13 with a runtime of 1 hour and 26 minutes. And this was written by Joss Whedon, directed by Fran Rubel Kuzui. Stars Kristy Swanson, Donald Sutherland, Paul Rubens, Rutger Hauer, Luke Perry, Hilary Swank, David Arquette. Some pretty notable folks are in this, looking super young. And apparently Thomas Jane is also in this.
Yep.
Tom Jane?
Yeah.
I saw an Affleck appearance too.
Yeah.
Ricky
Uncredited.
Lake. Mhm.
Ricky Lake's in this movie.
She's like she's the waiter when the hot dog gets cut in half. And Thomas Jane is
man.
the person running, he's the mechanic running the shop.
Rad. I missed him.
Oh wow, I did not
Yeah,
recognize
I
him.
didn't clock that either.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody in this thing looks like a fetus, so like I don't,
They are
I don't
children.
blame you
It's
for
true.
missing it.
It's a real who's who of the 90s here.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah, and the plot synopsis is brought to you by IMDb. It says, Flighty teenage girl Buffy Summers learns that she is her generation's destined battler of vampires. Battler. I feel like they could have maybe phrased that a little bit better.
Maybe if you read the back of the box that you
Slayer of
bought, Bob, I
vampires?
don't know. I mean, that is the name of this segment.
Way too many words on there. I couldn't do it.
Font's too small for you these days.
Does it tell you if it's in
Dude, I
Dolby?
know. That's true a lot of the time. Have y'all seen this movie before, and would you recommend folks check it out? Rachel, why don't you kick us off here?
Oh, yes. This was like absolutely a slumber party staple when I was growing up. I've seen this many, many times, but it has been several years, like a decade since I've seen it. And I revisited Weird Science this week for the first time in 25 years. And oh boy, did it not hold up. So
it's rough.
and a week ago, I would have said I had like a deep affection for it. So when I popped this in yesterday, fellas, I was nervous that like, this movie that I loved as a kid was, in 2024 was not going to hold up. And I was going to see it in like a whole new light, especially considering the whole Joss Whedon of it all. But thankfully, this movie absolutely is still as delightful as it was when I was a kid. It's camp. The comedy it still works. And I feel like in some ways, revisiting it now, it hit totally different. I kind of like knew that I appreciated the themes and ideas in the movie, but I couldn't really articulate it as a kid. Watching it now, it just hit very differently. I appreciated new things about it, and I'm excited to get into it. So yeah, I would say recommend. Definitely check it out.
Awesome. Fantastic. Juice, what about you?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I saw this when I was younger too. And so this was not a first time watch for me. And it had been a while as well. Last year, I was starting to go through the show, revisiting the show after a long time, having not seen that. And I was like, wow, this is a lot more campy than I remember. So it was fun to kind of go back and revisit the movie as well that kind of started it all. And one thing that I was kind of thinking about in the same way of the 90s, this is a very 90s film, but in the same way that like Harley Quinn was created for the Batman animated show, and now you can't hardly even like talk about or think about the Joker in the way that like you talk about Harley Quinn. Buffy as a vampire like staple, or is staple in the vampire lore and stuff like that, I feel like has been like established now, and it's fun to go back and revisit that as this kind of like name in horror. And but this is very, I think, accessible in a lot of ways because it's comedy, very campy, very goofy, very fun, not too over gory, and it really is a who's who of the 90s. So I think so it is a bit of a time capsule, and that might be a hurdle for some people to get over, but I think it is a fun watch. So yeah, I would recommend people check it out. Randy, had you seen this before? Would you recommend people check it out?
So I had never seen this before, and as a matter of fact, this is a movie, or I'm sorry, this property in general, Buffy. I've only seen like maybe 2-3 episodes of the show, and it was like the first three, where I'm sure they were getting the things worked out or whatever.
Yeah.
I just didn't keep up with it. It was not something that was super on my radar when it was relevant in the culture. So yeah, this was a first time watch for me. And yeah, I definitely felt the 90s-ness of it like a fucking nuclear blast like across my eyeballs. It is so goddamn 90s. And I enjoyed that about it. I like how campy it is. I remember like before this episode or before watching the movie, I watched the trailer like when we finally landed on this movie. And I was like, man, this is like sillier than I thought. Oh, fuck, Paul Rubens is here. Okay, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be just fine. And so that's more or less the attitude I held throughout my viewing, too. I would generally recommend this as a time capsule movie a little bit. But to your point, Justin, like I don't even really know Buffy's place in the lore. So this is the most lore intensive stuff I've gotten.
But you know
about
the
Buffy.
name.
I
And
know
her
her as a
association with
figure.
vampires. Yeah.
I know she's a vampire hunter. It's in the title.
Yeah.
So yes, that's as far as my knowledge went until now. And I know there's somebody called Giles in the show. I was looking for him. He's not around.
Where's my boy Giles?
My boy Giles ain't around. So I don't know. That's more or less where I was. So generally, yeah, I think I would recommend it for folks looking for that time capsule feel, or something a little campier, sillier that they can toss on and not be too thinky about.
Yeah. Oh, Bob, had you ever seen this before? Would you recommend people check it out? Bob?
No, this was a first time watch for me. I'm not familiar with the TV show either. I'm kind of in the Randy camp over here. It was like always on. So like, yeah, I've seen bits and pieces, but I never like sat down to watch it like intentionally. So yeah, this is the most Buffy I've ever got in my system. And I think also like Randy, I would kind of recommend this if you are really in the mood for like a 90s time capsule kind of movie, like something like very specifically 90s. I think this will definitely quench that thirst if you got it. Outside of that, as far as it being like a straight up vampire type movie, I don't know that it's bringing a whole lot of like stuff that you probably haven't already seen somewhere else. So if you're looking for some like cool vampire stuff, I don't know if this is really going to hit it, but it scratches that 90s itch for sure. And the shit that they say is pretty funny. The dialogue got me pretty good. So
some motherfuckers always trying to gag me with a spoon.
So yeah.
Now I just want to make a curated list of Buffy episodes for you boys.
I know.
That you have not seen
Wow.
Hush is unacceptable to me. We're going to need to pause the podcast and come back in an hour.
If you want to contribute free content to our endeavors, that is more than welcome. Add it to the pile.
Hit us up. Top 10 episodes to watch if you've never seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. That sounds like a pretty decent recommendation across the board here at Straight Chilling. We are going to be spoiling this movie, and here comes your warning.
Bob, do you have that plot synopsis?
I do indeed. I have it right here.
Hit me with it.
Go on this journey with me. So, Buffy is a cheerleader at Hemery High School in Los Angeles. She is approached by a man named Merrick who claims she is the Slayer, or the Chosen One, destined to kill vampires, and he is there to guide her along her journey. Buffy doesn't believe him until he accurately describes some dreams that she's been having, which are visions of previous Slayers. She also begins exhibiting various new abilities she didn't know she had. Two young men, Benny and Pike, we find them out drinking, and Benny gets attacked by a vampire called Amlin. He's turned into a vampire, but Merrick saves Pike. Pike tries to leave town, but is intercepted by Amlin and his gang of vampires. Merrick and Buffy save Pike, which lead to Buffy and Pike starting a little relationship. Vampire King Lothos encounters Buffy and Merrick. He kills Merrick, but just before he dies, he tells Buffy to do things her own way. At school, Buffy tries to tell her friends about the vampires, but they're just too focused on the school dance to care. At the senior dance, Buffy takes a dance with Pike, and Lothos crashes the party with his vampire minions. A fight breaks out. Pike ends up killing Benny. In the basement, Buffy kills Amlin and is then hypnotized by Lothos. She snaps out of it when she recalls Merrick's final words to her. She then runs back to the gym where Lothos attacks her with a badass sword. Buffy ultimately defeats Lothos and shares one more dance with Pike, and the couple ride off into the distance on a motorcycle. Roll them credits.
There you go.
There you go. There. So,
Man, where to start with this movie?
Yeah, I think, Rachel, you kind of touched on it briefly with like Joss Whedon writing this, and I think he I don't know if he was the showrunner or not for the TV show, but I know it was like very much his thing. Buffy started with him, but I think he walked off on this project. They started changing his script around quite a bit, so I really don't think he had a whole heck of a lot to do with it at the end of the day. But that is sort of where it generated. I don't know. Is this similar at all to the show, or is the show very different?
I mean, you can see that it's sort of like the lore is somewhat the same, and Buffy as a character, as sort of kind of a girl next door cheerleader, popular girl who kind of discovers her, her identity and her power through this, and kind of has the weight of the world on her shoulders is the same, but there is quite a bit different. As far as what was changed from Joss Whedon's script to the film that we actually got, they lightened some of the lore. They changed a handful of the jokes. The tone was a little bit lighter. And they're fairly minor changes ultimately, and yet he stormed off stage, which probably should have been a sign early on that maybe he's not the feminist hero that he thinks he is if he can't handle having a few changes done by the woman who is directing and financing the film. Maybe there were some red flags there. But as far as I know, they're not that dissimilar. They've since released a comic book version of his original story called The Origin, where they kind of meld the film and his original story, and it's really not that different.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I saw like some of the things was too like his jokes. He was mad that some of his jokes were cut, and like Donald Sutherland was ad-libbing a lot of his lines, and he got really mad about that. So it did seem kind of more of a control freak type of I can't have it my way, and he got really mad and kind of
I don't know how you like of all the people to get pissed at in this production. It's like the most established and incredible actor like you can find in the whole production. He's the guy you're going to go after? I don't think so, man. Come on.
Yeah, I thought it was ironic that he has complained about how he was hard to work with on set. Buddy, take a look in the mirror.
Calling the kettle.
Yeah.
I think that
also some of the most iconic things from this movie are actually changes that she made or ad libs that were done. Like the Christian Slater line. Originally, the line was Charlie Sheen, and she changed it to Christian Slater. Like, this is the kind of level of changes that are happening. And then obviously Paul Rubens's death scene is all ad libbed. So, and these are the things we remember most about this movie. If you watched it when you were younger, was that death scene. And that was I think that line was in the commercial. So it's kind of one of the iconic ones from the film.
And even though they kind of distance themselves from it, the show starts off with her having to change like towns and schools because this movie came before it. So what they try to say is like, no, the comic or whatever, the story that originally he wrote was what leads into the show. But I mean, if you go into the show, having watched this film, you understand like where she has come from and why she's in this new position. Yeah. So that the reason like Giles is not in there or whatever, like in the show, she starts off going to a new school in a new town. And that's part of the conflict too. Like, I'm away from all my friends and the life I knew and stuff like that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a lot of new information for me. I had remembered it being more like rebooting, but from the little I've seen, but I mean, it's interesting that they did that at all with Joss at the helm. Like, I would think he'd just kind of write it off and just start. I don't know. I guess he kind of did, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, the Kuzuis were producers on the series as well.
Oh, okay. Okay. So he had some,
and they're the ones that we're talking about rebooting it again in 2018. So they still maintain some rights around it. So.
Jenna Ortega is
oh Jesus.
Probably. Yeah. Probably.
That is what
Joy is just a little too old at this point. So
even being young, and it is hard for me. I can't separate the idea of this being tied into the show because I did watch the show a lot when I was younger, and it had a big influence on just introducing to horror and things like that. And so going back, I really do appreciate, even though it's not that explored in this movie necessarily, but the idea of the whole like Slayer mythos of there's this one person, they're chosen, they're kind of like reincarnated or reborn every generation. They have these special powers because it's something they explore more in the show where it's like, you know, how each kind of Slayer died in the past or things like that. But it's fun to get even just these little bit of moments of, oh, this past Slayer and their kind of personalities and how they lived in their society and like what their role and responsibility is, and how it's just kind of thrust upon you. It's not a job that you're getting paid to do or anything like that. It's just, you know, you're just it's almost like a Spider-Man kind of deal where like, I want to be a regular person. I want to live my regular life. I want to go on dates and stuff. But also I have this huge guilt and responsibility that I have to deal with. So I really like that and appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know, it was interesting to me about the lore. Like, first of all, I was kind of immediately like chuckling to myself at the very 80s, 90s tactic of same actors, different, you know, like different set. Basically, like makeup's not done all different.
Same actor, new
this
wig.
Is now the new wig, a new dress, and then forsooth and those sorts of words mixed in. And that's what kind of, like it's very. It struck me as very like Sam Raimi doing a flashback. You know what I mean? So like almost like chintzy and all that stuff. It's got the camp going on. But where was I going with that? I had a whole thing I was going to spring into, but yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was kind of interesting. And it's like, to me, I was not expecting this movie to be as sort of like self-aware as it seems to be. I was kind of clear on what the series was, and it seemed like it was definitely that, especially as it goes on. But there's a difference between self-referential and then like meta-referential. And I think this has a little bit of that on the around the edges. The Christian Slater line was like the number one example actually for me. I was like, this is Heathers with not zombies, with vampires, and you know, like a more confusing story, I would say, than that one. But this is like it has that cadence of like kind of taking the piss out of the materialism and all that stuff, but to the nth degree with this movie, like to where it's like it starts out like, man, there's not a likable person in this whole fucking movie, is there? That's where we start, and fortunately, Sutherland comes along and breaks it loose, I think. No, I'm touching.
I mean,
touching
the
some nerves.
disrespect of Buffy is so upsetting.
She chose bugs as her reason to fix the climate. I don't know.
I mean, bugs are terrible. Have you met bugs?
I've met bugs. I am terrified of bugs, but you know,
okay,
you might want a bug or two.
They serve no purpose at all. Get rid of them.
Yeah. You know, ecology and shit. That's a thing.
See,
what about my boy Luke Perry?
I felt nothing about Luke. I'll be honest.
Okay. But I mean, this is the thing about Buffy. Like, now I'm not coming at you, but I just want to point out like what's amazing about this character is that she is the character that this genre typically maligns, that typically treats as, you know, body count, that we get at best or like at worst kind of a cathartic thrill from seeing die. You know, at best, maybe we just don't think that she can bring value in a situation like this. But instead, we flip this trope on its head. We make this character much more fully realized. She is powerful and without sacrificing her girlhood, you know, and her femininity is never diminished through this process. It's something that she embraces. Her girlhood is something that she embraces throughout it, like both, you know, in the way that she continues to have the same sort of motivations, desires, values, and textually later in the film when he says something about like, you know, he tries to weaponize Pike, our Luke Perry character, who is so vanilla, but he tries to kind of weaponize her being one of like, just like other girls. And then later tries to flip it on its head and try to say, look, oh, you're not like one of those girls. But instead she says, yes, I am. And that's like, actually, there's a really powerful nuance to the feminism of this film. And all of that stuff you're talking about, like, oh, she's not likable, are the things that actually make this film really interesting to me.
So, yeah, I agree with all of that, really, because what I'm getting at is not that she's unlikable throughout the film, but for like the first act, maybe I'm like, man, she's way more like vapid and like, I don't know if she's playing dumb and that's what it comes out to kind of be. She's kind of just playing into a caricature of herself. She's written that way and obviously intentionally, but like I wasn't sure how intentional it was. I was like, man, this is like just feels like cheap shots, you know? And it eventually did give way to something a little more nuanced, which I did like. I ended up liking her fine. It's just that first act was a little bit of a trudge because I was like, man, who am I rooting for right now? Is it Paul Rubens? It's probably Paul Rubens.
That introduction where he's on the carousel just like lounging is
I know.
Fantastic. What an intro.
Yeah, the 90s facial and hair here is, on point. The soul patch. My boy Luke Perry's got the soul patch.
The scene where he shaves it and like puts shaving cream over his entire face just to shave off that tiny little
to shave the soul patch.
It's pretty fantastic.
Gotta do a thorough job, guys.
Bob, I don't know. Were you about to say something, Bob?
I wanted to touch on Rachel kind of brought up the point of like Buffy's femininity is like, never being diminished or whatever. And there's one moment that really stuck out to me towards the end of the movie when she uses her hairspray to light Lothos on fire. And I really loved that moment. And I kind of wish there was a little bit more of that actually, because it was really smart and, plays to her character. And Merrick saying, do things your own way. You don't have to, listen to all the bullshit that I've been spewing at you the rest of the movie. But yeah, that was a great touch. I wish there was a little more of it though.
But I think that's kind of the point, right? She's still the same girl she was in those opening scenes. The thing you have to kind of interrogate is your reaction to that trope. Like if you can love her at the end, you can love her at the beginning because she's the same girl. But your journey, your experience of her and seeing her levels is what's changed your opinion. So what does that say? What does that say about the way that you interpret this genre of girlhood?
Well, and I like that I like that the character has growth and like a growth arc where at the end, she's saying things like, okay, some of these things that I had this perception of, it's a coming of age story for her. She's growing up and identifying like what really matters, but she's still, the things that matter to her and the core of her, she has growth and she has perspective. But she's still at the end of the day, like you said, she doesn't shed those things about her. She just has growth and a new perspective on life, which I like the nuance of that because I feel like one, as you said, a lot of times this is a character trope that is one of the first to die, or it's like the sidekick character over here, or just, the dumb blonde or something like that that's just going to get off. And so to have that as the main character that does show growth but doesn't have to, or like doesn't necessarily live up to the dumb blonde, but also like has characteristics that you would associate is, oh, that's just a dumb blonde or whatever, but gives it character and like gets to know like this is a real person. These are things people are interested in. They have strength, they have growth, they're real people, things like that. I like the nuance of that.
Yeah. I think that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like this movie is kind of ahead of its time. It was like right before the dawn of like the girl power era. It was like 4 more years before the Spice Girls came out. It was like a decade before Resident Evil and Underworld came along. And we really sort of solidified this sort of female action character, which becomes deeply fetishized and like deeply male gazy. This early sort of proto strong female character still has, because of Fran Rubel Kuzui, very much has the female gaze. And there's like that tension between like the Joss Whedon of it all. And I think that's maybe some of what actually you're getting at, Justin, with that she gets to maintain her femininity and still and continue to have like growth without losing that aspect of herself. And I think that comes back to that female gaze.
Well, yeah, and I think that is the growth, is like that she is more than meets the eye, and I don't think even she knows that at the beginning, and that's what's kind of frustrating. Is you're watching her like be rude to people and like kind of be a dick to people at times, and doing pretty much normal things or whatever, and things that so many people do, especially at that age, and it all is like just sort of like, okay, I mean, is she going to eventually get the perspective she needs, and that is ultimately what happens. So yes, I see what you guys are all saying, and I think that that's totally fair. To my mind, I was just like, towards the beginning of this movie, man, I was not sure that it was going to hit that note or if it was going to just thud against that wall the entire movie.
Well, also too, an interesting thing, I think that we see it through a perception of these days, just being able to use Spider-Man as an example, because there's a lot of like similar kind of themes of like the responsibility and things. But from that perspective, they shine the light through a certain perspective of, oh, this like kind of nerdy kid who girls don't pay attention to, or, you know, and they try to paint it up in an endearing type of way because, oh, that's who's going to be watching the kind of film. Oh, the underdog. Oh, the person who the girls didn't talk to in high school, or those things. And so it seems like a more like endearing thing. Oh, see, he becomes strong, and see, he, you know, people appreciate his value and stuff like that. And so it's nice to have a different perspective of somebody, just from a different perception, but also maybe even higher up in the social ladder of like, this is what I have to give up. This is why it's harder for me to accept on these responsibilities, because like I have friends in a social group and a life, and like that's the burden of me having to give things up, like my boyfriend, not give up boyfriend, but, you know, deal with like him not being able to accept this part of me, and those kinds of things. And so I think it's just shown through a different perception that seems like, oh, you know, these rude, or, you know, these teenage girls or whatever like that, when we're so used to getting this like, oh, this underdog endearing little guy, you know, oh yeah, he needs, you know, the kind of upper hand or whatever. So, you know what I'm saying?
No, yeah,
he's
just
a different
she's not sympathetic to begin with, and that is just a whole different situation. Like, I don't think she's not positioned, like you say, as the beleaguered nerd who can't get a win. She's the person that gets wins, and also is a little rude to people or whatever, and like that, like it's a little off-putting.
But who is she being rude to? Like the creepy guy that tries to get on. Yeah, a creepy dude that tried to push his way onto the elevator. Good for her. Have a
guy getting on the elevator is someone you'd be rude to?
Like someone who, like the way he approached the elevator.
Like, oh, wait, hold the elevator.
Nah, he was like, as a teenage girl, like you are on alert for creepy old dudes. So like, I kind of respect her boundaries.
Later on, she's way more like, oh, well, am I in trouble? And like, I was like, man, she should be way more concerned than this.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair criticism. She handled it okay ultimately, but yeah, especially when he showed up the second time, she should have been like pulling out the pepper spray.
Him in the gym, like, that's some great form you have, or whatever. It's like, now that that should be the last words you hear him speak as you leave the room. Like, fuck that guy. No, I mean, and I love Sutherland or whatever, and I know what they were going for, whatever. Like, but that scene, man, I don't know. But in the elevator, I was like, I wasn't sure what his role was just yet, and then I was like, man, this guy's just trying to get on a fucking elevator. What's going on?
No, he's in like full kidnapper van style. Like if it wasn't Donald Sutherland, if it was just like a rando actor in the same costume that like pushed his way into the elevator, I wonder if you know, like
that's a good point, yeah.
You know, or like the guys that are being creepy to her in a restaurant. Like, I'm like, good for you, girl. Get him. Cut up his hot dog.
Yeah, well, I think that is a good point too. Yeah, is the opposite side of that is, you know, the first guys that were introduced, you know, the Pee-wee, he's on, you know, he's creeping on the carousel and stuff like that. There's no guy who's coming along who is painted as just this kind of like gentlemanly type. Everybody, you know. Yeah. Everybody's kind of skeevy, or, you know, some shady shit's going down. So, yeah, I think that that's fair enough, too, to be like on alert or be like defensive, or yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like, you know, as girls, we're taught to be friendly. Your smile is actually a form of self-defense, those kinds of things. So like anytime I see a girl who like has strong boundaries and is like not afraid to be like, no, that is actually inspiring to me. Because I'm guilty of definitely not setting those kinds of boundaries. And I think as a teenage girl seeing that, there was something aspirational about she was like already, before she even knew she was a Slayer and she was a chosen one, she was very much taking her power, her social power. And I think there's something kind of great about that.
Fair.
Agree to disagree. I think that's where we are, my friend. Yeah. But I still love and respect you.
Yeah, ditto. No, I mean, I think that's all very valid. I just like, I don't have that point of view.
Totally.
I don't have the perspective of that. But like, just I know that I have like walked up to an elevator that was closing and put my hand out, and if I just did that, and then a bunch of kids were just like, "What a fucking asshole!" I'd be like, what the fuck did I do? I'm just trying to ride a goddamn elevator here.
Randy's
I don't know.
concerned about that elevator.
I feel like
I know.
we're triggering him. We're touching a nerve.
These teenage girls are being mean to me.
I'm
Just trying to get really close to him in an elevator.
Randy's scared of teenage girls. So talking about
That's
the receipts
accurate.
I had
Stay the fuck away from me.
I had earlier was so at the time Luke Perry was 26. Also, this is in the middle of his 90210 height.
How old did you say? I'm sorry.
He was 26. I wrote a note that Luke Perry's 26 and looks super old. Buffy though, who's the actress's name?
Kristy
She was
Swanson.
23 at the time. So it wasn't a creepy kind of thing. We were just touching on this the other day where we were talking about a movie and it was The Breakfast Club, where Molly Ringwald was actually like 15 or 16 and the guy she has to kiss is like 23 or some shit.
Yeah.
So at least, everybody's old, it's just older, but it's so funny. We joked about this in the craft, but it is funny to have that idea of, this. Now, to be fair, they don't paint Luke Perry's character as somebody who's in high school. He's supposed to be out already, but still, she's 23. Now, this is something we do touch on, 23-year-olds playing, 15-year-old girls, which is like, no, this is a mature woman, the 23-year-old, but they don't sexualize her very much in this film, which is appreciated because that is where it gets creepier, where it's like, oh yeah, this 26, 24, 23-year-old woman who is, walking around in some underwear. She's supposed to be 15 or some shit like that. It's like, I appreciate that they're not doing that. Yeah. It's really just from this perspective, it's funny it's like a 90s trope, of like, these people are not teenagers. They're not even close to teenagers. So yeah.
I mean, the creepiest, most objectifying thing about this movie is actually the poster. If you go back and look at the poster, her face isn't even on it. It's just it's just her torso holding a steak.
Damn.
So it's
that's not even like
Fran's gaze versus the marketing department's gaze is very different.
I wonder if they change it. So this is the one that's on Wikipedia, which I'm having up for so I can remember cast names, but it won't show up.
Yeah, there's that one, and then there's another one that's just her cheerleading costume torso. Yeah,
that's what's
whenever
on IMDb.
I see that one, I'm bummed.
Well, because it's like what's weird, like the kind of the proof is in the pudding because she's not wearing the like under. The purple, whatever it is, lycra, or I don't know what you call that shit. She's not wearing that underneath. That's much more skin than is in the movie. So yeah, you're totally right. I don't know. Like I don't know. Like this, the whole thing with like her friends or whatever. What did you guys think about that? Like I thought it was cool or whatever to see her like drift away from that a little bit and then still like have some sort of connection, but they kind of just disappear except for Hilary Swank in the movie. Like I think one of them gets vampirized and the other one steals her ex or something. Yeah. Is that, am I correct about that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really like wrap that up. That's one thing about this movie is I feel like I'm actually going to kind of go off in a different direction here, but like the editing in this movie kind of bummed me out a little bit. It was a little like janky. Sometimes it would just go from one scene to another and it feels like that scene wasn't quite done yet. And like, so wait, what happened? Like when her boyfriend is staying over the night or whatever, they kiss on the couch for a minute and she's kind of like not super into it or whatever. She's just eating popcorn. And then it cuts to her having a nightmare. And I'm like in her bed alone with a stuffed animal. I'm like, so is this, what's the deal with the boyfriend? I don't understand what their relationship is now. Did he get thrown out? What's happening? Like shit like that happened quite a bit where I was just like left a little bit confused until I could like reorient. And so like, that really bummed me out a lot. That's probably my biggest complaint with the movie, honestly.
That's fair.
Yeah, we do now. Yeah, one thing as far as the friends go, is they do focus more on David Arquette as like, Pike's friend, and he has a little bit more development as a kind of character or whatever, because a little bit more, we just see more of him. So like, I understand. I mean, we do get, I guess Hilary Swank would be the closest version of that to Buffy. But yeah, most of her friends are very just like kind of shallow. We don't really know much about them. We get a little bit of the boyfriend. But yeah, Hilary Swank is not that great of a friend. But we don't dive too deep into to her either, though. Like I feel like we get more of David Arquette as a side character than anybody else or whatever. So, and even just having David Arquette in here, I forgot that he was in this, or just him being a vampire, like floating around. That was one of the scenes that always stuck out to me in my mind, like from childhood, of him floating outside the window and his friend being like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, hey, man, at first. I love that. I was
like, let me in. Nah.
You're kind of floating right now, man. I love that. But no, like he's interesting, and like I kind of thought that like as much they did give him a little development, I wish there was more, because like he's kind of doing that thing where he's just like the put upon you know, I don't know how you phrase this, but like the outsider kid who resents his position and resents everybody who has what he doesn't and all this stuff, and is happy to take up this new form of a vampire and take his revenge in that way. And they kind of intimate towards that, but not quite enough to where I feel like it lands entirely. It feels like it's just sort of hinted at, and then Pike just sort of like whatever, and then the scene's over. Like that's
yeah. I think that's fair. I wonder. So this movie was originally supposed to just be like a tiny little indie film. And then Luke Perry signed on, who was like looking for something that would allow him to break out of his 90210 role. And he read the script and thought like, oh, I want to be a damsel in distress in this. And I wonder if there was some like rewriting and some like adding to his backstory, because his character feels bigger and more important than he actually should be, considering he isn't even in the like apocalyptic scene. Like he's in the gym just waiting. He really does kind of get the like sideline girl role in this. And so I wonder if some of the David Arquette of it all was part of enriching that, actually meant to enrich the role of Pike more so. Yeah, I don't know. That's a theory. I have no idea. I will say that I agree with the Friends stuff. I think this is where I feel the most 1990s of it. I mean, that and the fashions, which are hilarious. But I do feel like we're seeing something that is like very much an 80s trope in the way that all the Friends are written. Hilary Swank does get a little bit more, but it still only exists as someone to provide like horizontal hostility. It doesn't actually seem like Buffy has any friends, especially by the end of it. And I feel like that is where the movie has not aged well, is with that friend group. So I think all of your criticisms about that are totally fair.
I like the April O'Neil jacket, the yellow leather. I was like, God damn, April O'Neil.
April O'Neil. I love it.
Icon that she is.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot to like about this movie, though. Like, the thing is, like, a lot of these criticisms that I have are largely, I don't know, like, a lot of them are like easy to gloss and not worry about too much because of the tone of the movie. The movie is, like I said, like it's very like seems like it's pretty self-aware for its time anyway, and it's clearly like just mishmashing some stuff together and like making it work and making the lore makes sense for this character and all this stuff, and that's all good. It just seems like, I don't know, there's something about it that's a little uneven at the end of the day, and I think a lot of that is the editing and stuff like that. But it's because it's so silly, because you get Paul Rubens dying for like a full minute. Like, how do you look at this movie? Because Rutger Hauer is just being ridiculous, and like he's shifting his character like 3 or 4 times to entirely different zones. It seems like he's like, at first he starts off with like Bela Lugosi's Dracula, and he winds up, I don't even know what, just like
incel.
Fucking,
he goes full like neckbeard 4chan incel.
Oh my God, is my incel radar off?
Yes.
Tell me more.
Well, he starts off like, oh, you are the chosen one. I would never hurt you. And then the minute she rejects him, he's like, you bitch. I was like, oh, I've texted with you before. I know you. I accidentally swiped right on you before.
He's a pomp guy. That's totally true. I can't believe my incel radar failed me.
Randy, that's usually, You're usually
he just seemed like kind of all over the place to me. I was like, wait a minute, what the fuck? I could tell he was like being like more of a dick, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he's weirdly cast in this. My criticism is all of his floating scenes. Like, you could basically smell the wires he was on.
Yeah, he's a floating boy in this one, but man, I don't know. Like, I like Rutger Hauer so much in other things, but in this, he's just kind of like
Very
I don't know. Not, as a character, he's written to be unlikable, obviously, and like for the reasons you just said and more. But he's just like, again, that's another uneven element that I'm just like that left me like a little stilted, and that's kind of the feeling I had watching most of this movie. Is like it's stilted, but I'm enjoying myself, and I think that's largely due to like some of the sillier performances and some of the like interesting lore, and then just the aesthetic. I think between those three things, you can forgive a lot of those rough edges, but they're still there.
There's a couple lines that they dropped that I like. So one from him, I'm pretty sure it's him, that gives it as a male perspective, gives it this creepy of like, from Buffy's perspective. He drops this one line of, "Have you ripened so fast?" And I was just like, oh God, what the fuck? But I think those kind of those kind of choices, I think, really hit home more like from a male perspective of some of the maybe underlying creepy things that maybe men say that they don't pick up on how creepy they are, or even men watching about how creepy it would be to be on the receiving end. But they go hard on these things. Like, I was like, "Have you ripened so fast?" Like, what the? But
this is why we're slamming elevator doors in people's faces.
I like that they kind of ramp it up a little bit to really add the skeeve, to really make any kind of viewer uncomfortable and be like, yeah, that's not fucking chill. Because they do have to add they do add that little perspective of the Dracula aspect of it. Where is he seductive? Which they make him kind of, I don't know this from my perspective, but like super old and not smooth at all, but he has that layer on him like he's supposed to be, even though he's really not in the film. But I do like that layer of what is perceived as smooth and sexual, or he thinks that he's got that gaze and things like that, where we just see it as really this like creepy, skeevy old dude's creeping. I like that they play with that in a really interesting way.
Agree.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's a good point, and like I like I like that about him. It's like I kind of wish they had just pushed that more. Like him being sort of like all over the place could have been focused into being more like, I'm trying to think of a good example, and this is not the best example, but the only one that's coming to mind is like Hades from Hercules, where he's like supposed to be imposing. He's supposed to be this like pompous figure or whatever, but then he'll be like, "What? That's too much." Whoa. And he does his James Woodsiness, and it's like if you did just a little bit more of that, like aside to the minions sort of thing, I think it would have made more sense from the beginning. Give him a little bit of like an appearance when he first arrives, then end that scene with him being like, "Go get me a drink," or some shit like that. Like, I don't know, do something like to demean the guy, but not like in character as his full like stately self, show that he's got this underlying thing going on. If they just pushed that a little more, I would have been like, I think fine with the character actually.
Yeah.
I kind of wish they allowed Paul Rubens to ham it up a little bit more. That would have been like one of my big, his death scene is so iconic. I kind of wish that he had a little bit more room to ham it up, because a lot of the time it seems like maybe they're trying to play him as serious, and sometimes he's a little goofy, but not quite as goofy as I would like. And then obviously we get the awesome death scene, but yeah,
the line he drops where he says, "Kill him a lot," was more of that. Good line.
Yeah, and I think that was probably Paul Rubens himself. I do know that he actually came in later in the production. It was like when another actor dropped out. It was originally, do you know who Joan Chen is? The actress Joan Chen. She was in Twin Peaks.
Yeah, from Twin Peaks.
Yes, she was originally supposed to be that character.
Really?
And at the time,
that's an entirely different thing.
Yeah. And so, and like, I think a lot of that character of him just being this kind of like strange and effeminate rocker guy was Paul Rubens. And if you remember, like at the time, this was sort of his comeback movie. He was kind of in disgrace at this time because of the whole movie theater thing. This was the first thing that he did after all of that had kind of died down a little bit. So, I was wondering about that. Yeah. So that's why, like, probably he wasn't as big a role as he should have been, because this was his comeback film, but she let him kind of have room to play with the character and create the character. And it's one of the best parts of the movie, arguably.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely one of the more fun people to watch do stuff. I totally agree. More of him would have been great. That makes a lot of sense, though, that they probably like toned him down a little bit, especially because they didn't have a lot of stuff like worked into the original DNA of things, because he had an entirely different kind of actor in that role.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what that would look like. That would be so much more boring. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, like I don't think Joan Chen camp. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. Which is weird because she's in Twin Peaks, which is just like right on that line.
That's true.
So.
That is true. That is camp. You're right. Touche.
But it's a different kind of camp. It's soap camp. It's not horror camp, or I don't know. I'm making things up as I speak. So
we just call that a podcast. It's fine.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we do.
We're just cast in here.
Have you heard of our podcast?
I think one thing we got to touch on before we end up landing the plane real quick. We were watching the movie throughout the week, and Justin sent out a text message and was like, "Did you guys hear the line in the movie?" And we're like, "What line?" And then you watch it, and it was like,
blew my mind.
Yeah, so we reviewed Hocus Pocus several years ago, and during that, the Yabos line being dropped in that movie was like such a bizarre slang term that like blew our mind. And then this movie came out.
Well, we thought we had the discussion. Right. We thought that Disney had made that word up.
Yeah.
To have some sort of slang in a Disney film. And I remember, I think even at the time we tried to research it. We were like, is this a made up word? And anything that we pulled up about it only reference Hocus Pocus.
But yeah, this movie came out the year before Hocus Pocus. In the did David Arquette say it? I forget.
David Arquette said it. He said, her Yabos scoff at gravity. And I rewound it a couple times and like turned up because I typically have Korean subtitles on. And so I turned on the English and I was like, whoa. Rewind. Like I was like, and it's like Yabos. And I did it again. I was like, listening and reading. I was like, holy
am I being
shit.
punked right now?
Oh, God, no.
You guys in this moment, you know what just happened? You became the preeminent Yabos researchers, historians.
Oh, no.
Yes,
the authorities.
Yes,
I've always wanted to be preeminent, but that's not what for.
Preeminent Yabos historians.
The etymology.
I can't believe I was here for this moment. History.
My resume's got to be updated.
Hold on, let me go to LinkedIn real quick.
Yeah,
Jesus.
That can't be it had to have been a word that was at least somewhat used as slang like around because it's showing up in these two movies back to back like that.
Well, they use a lot of slang that doesn't like comport anymore. Like they use blow to mean like get out of here, which is kind of like I think like a 40s thing, like a film noir era is what I think of. I say, all right, let's blow, like, you know, that sort of thing. But and they say it like that. But if you say, all right, I'm gonna blow, like if I say that to somebody now, they're gonna be like, what the fuck is this guy talking about?
What?
Is this guy gonna go get some? What's happening?
They know.
This guy's about to get a little workout.
Well, yeah, I remember, and I didn't necessarily do it for this because I specifically remember we did it at that time, but there wasn't anything, you know, like 90s references or 90s slang or anything. Anything that we pulled up always would just be quoting or referencing Hocus Pocus. So yeah, it was wild for me. I was like, this predates Hocus Pocus. These
Joss Whedon invent Yabos? Is that a Joss Whedonism?
Oh no, that's. I think you just distilled him down to a single fact. That kind of encapsulates the whole deal.
We need to do more research. We're on the job. We got to find out the true origins.
Our preeminence needs to do some work.
Yeah.
If you have any reference, a predated reference to now Buffy is the earliest.
That's a huge anus
Yabos.
signal.
Well, I mean, we've already thrown.
He already called in. We'll get to him.
He called in.
All right.
But yeah, that was wild. It blew my mind. I did rewind it and watch that scene like 3 or 4 times just to make sure that I got it right. But yeah, Yabos.
Wild.
Before we land anything, I have one more thing I want to point out, which is that some of the funniest characters in this movie, probably the funniest, are one-off characters that are just the adults. Stephen Root is so fucking funny in this.
He's great.
And oh god, who is the other one? Oh, the coach who's just like the
actualized.
Yeah, he's just doing like it's like they brought in the like the guidance counselor stock character and put him into the coach role, and for some reason that was really funny to me. He had the fucking Eye of Horus on his game board. Like, it's fucking insane.
Yeah, I agree. They were great. Yeah.
Anyway.
I laughed at the actualized line. It's just like such weird, like therapist speak. Yes. So good. So good.
They're all just like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? It's great.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's the thing is that there is some. I think you look at it as a high concept film. You think you know what you're getting, that it's just going to be real dumb. But there's actually some great comedic writing in this, and it's moments like that I think it really shines through.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and land this plane and rate Buffy out of 5. Rachel, you were kind of rolling into it. Why don't you kick us off? How do you feel about Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Now, I admit I cannot be totally objective about this because, like I said, it was something I enjoyed a ton as a kid, and I certainly have seen it quite a few times. So I think, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna say that it is. Do we do quarters or is half
sure.
only?
Yeah, you
quarters,
can do quarters.
whatever fraction you prefer.
3.75.
3 3/4, respectable. All right. Juice, how do you feel?
Yeah, coming from a similar perspective is I do have some nostalgia for this, and I was pleased to rewatch it again and feel like I wasn't let down or disappointed by it. There were some things though I just couldn't help but also compare it to the show in some ways, where I was thinking to myself when the way that the vampires die, I was wanting more from it, because in the show they just like turn into this big puff of dust or whatever, and it looks cool, and even maybe some of the looks of the vampires too. So I was having a little bit harder time this time not putting so much on the show, which I was like, this came later, it's kind of a different thing, but it was affecting my view a little bit. I also, looking at it objectively, I recognize that this is a very specific time, and I would be curious to even a much younger viewer coming into this for the first time and not really, Bob and Randy didn't see the show, but I mean, just somebody like coming in kind of completely blind, I would be curious of how it strikes them. But since I grew up in the time and grew up with the show and had seen this before, it's hard for me to not look at it through like some specific lenses, but I did have a fun time rewatching it. I thought it was funny. I do see Randy's kind of points though. Some of the editing is a little choppy, and some of the characters are kind of shallow and kind of wanting more from them. I really didn't give a shit about Luke Perry. I was kind of anytime he was dominating and seeing like fighting, I was just like, get him out of here. I don't really care about Luke Perry.
Out of here.
Yeah, I just didn't. I kind of wanted more. I really wish Arquette was tied more to Buffy, because I like seeing him and I thought he did a fun job with the role. Kind of wanted more from him as well. But yeah, Luke Perry, I ain't give a shit about him. Overall, I think kind of trying to be a little objective, but not going too hard on it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a 2.5. I think it holds up pretty well, but it is super dated. But I am going to give half star for the Yabos, since it's a pre-date, so we're gonna end it at a 3 here for the Yabos. I guess reference. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a quarter point per Yabo.
Yeah. So 3 stars from me. Randy, how do you feel about this film?
I definitely feel more positively about this film than I feel negative about it. Like I said earlier, like the core of what I feel towards this movie is nostalgia and camp fun, silliness, and enjoyment from those 2 points of view. And not so much from like the vampire point of view. Like I feel like this movie is kind of in this weird valley for me where it's not quite Heathers and it's not quite Lost Boys. It's not quite got the commentary level of Heathers, and it's not quite got the like action and fun, or not fun. Fun's the wrong word. The like gory action horror fun of Lost Boys, and I want it to kind of have both because it's going for both certainly, and it just kind of like it dips a little bit in the valley of not quite getting there. And I think that a lot of that, like I said, and like Justin, you brought back up. I just changed words there. It's the editing. Like there's so much editing stuff going on. Like I love Stephen Root, but there was that scene where he's like bearing his soul about being on mushrooms or something to Buffy in his office, and like she spits a fucking thumbtack into a fly, and I guess he doesn't notice, and they just kind of like end the scene on him being like, it really changed my life or something like that. It's like, wait, what's happening then? Like this is like, what was the point of that scene? Was it the fly, or was it Stephen Root's joke? I feel like there should be something else going on in this scene that it needs to wrap up, and it doesn't. So like, there's just a lot of that where it just, like, the writing ultimately doesn't feel super even. The performances are fun, but not always consistent with themselves. And some of the characters, like we pointed out, like David Arquette and Luke Perry David Arquette less so than Luke Perry, are a little bit of an afterthought. And it's a shame because I definitely saw some potential in what David Arquette was saying, and that could have been parlayed into Luke Perry and have him, like, be almost seduced by the dark side, and, like, almost be like, see, you can, like his old best friend is trying to get him to join. I thought that's what was going to happen when he nailed him onto the table or whatever in that fight scene in the dance. He was going to be like, see, man, we got what we wanted. They're all running scared now. And that's really all it amounts to, instead of him being like, you can join us, and, like, doing like an offering or something. I don't know. That's just one pitch for what they could have done extra on top of that. And I feel like there's a number of characters, like Rachel, you pointed out, the friends as well, that weren't quite fleshed out the way that I would like them to be, or were more caricature than not at the end of the day, which is a shame because, as you pointed out, there's a lot of caricature breaking that's going on with Buffy herself. So I don't know. Definitely some flaws for me, but I'm just looking... For a reference, sometimes I'll go back and look at what I've scored other things, and I definitely like this more than Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. So I'm going to give this a 3.25.
What did you give Attack of the Killer Tomatoes?
I gave it a 3. I was riding high on the silliness of that fucking movie.
Wow.
I don't know that it would hold up if I watched it again today, but man, I was definitely, like, surprised at how fucking ridiculous that movie is.
All right.
I don't know why I was surprised, but
oh, hey.
Wrap us up out of 5.
Mostly in line with what you guys have been saying. I think this really does, at the end of the day, feel like a proof of concept for the TV show, even though I haven't seen the TV show. It just felt like as the credits were rolling, I was like, man, I just kind of wanted a little bit more of everything that was in this movie. I really like the flashbacks, but, like, I could have used more of them. Just a little bit more lore coming from Merrick. More vampire battles, more blood and guts, more jokes. I mean, it was a very, very short movie, and I could have used another, like, 15 or 20 minutes. Honestly, it left me, like, wanting a little more. That being said, most of what was actually in the movie was done well. I really enjoyed the goofy dialogue. The characters were a little thin, but again, if you just had maybe some more time to sit with them, you could get a little more out of them. The cast is fantastic. Seeing all these familiar faces looking so damn young it's a lot of fun. The Yabos line totally took me off guard, obviously. It's just like, it's a fun, light popcorn movie at the end of the day. And I think if you want to watch something like that, specifically like from the 90s, I think this is gonna do it for you. It reminded me a lot of Saved by the Bell, which is something I watched a ton of as a kid. It had kind of that vibe. So I think I was kind of coming in with a 2.5, but after our conversation bumped me up a little bit to a 3. So I'm going to come in with a 3 even on this, and that's going to put our aggregate at a 3.25.
Feels fair.
Yeah.
That feels fair.
Let's jump into our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users have to say about Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
all right, folks, you know how this works. This is the Rotten Tomatoes segment in which I'm going to give these folks a chance to guess within the best of their abilities what the aggregate positive score is for both critics and users for a Rotten Tomatoes Buffy the Vampire Slayer entry. This is, of course, for the film. There is, I guess they do TV shows as well because that's on here. Anyway, we're going to start. I'll start with our esteemed guest here, Rachel. We have 53 critic reviews. 53 of those. So out of those 53, what percentage would you guess are positive reviews?
Ooh, this feels like a movie that has a good audience score and a really rough critic score, especially when it came out. I don't picture like 90s critics really getting or appreciating this movie. But then I think Rotten Tomato scores continue to be updated as more get added. And I do feel like this has gotten some love over the years. I think it's gotten re-examined. So sorry, I'm figuring this out on the fly. Forgive me.
Please.
So I think probably when it first came out, it probably had like 25%, but like maybe it's gotten enough love to bump it up to like 35, 40.
Okay, one number, please.
35.
35. Okay. 35. All right. All right, Juice, why don't we go to you next? Where do you think it's going to land?
Yeah, it's hard to say because you never know when the reviews are going to be counted from. So I kind of have in my mind now that maybe most of the critics' reviews that we're going to be getting from this point in time would have like the show as a reference and people, beloved from watching that and stuff. So I think it might be a little bit higher and like more forgiving maybe of like the camp or enjoying that kind of like nostalgic look back. So I'll say 60%.
60%. All right, Bob, how about you?
You're up.
Upper, lower, middle?
I'll be on the positive side of things and come in a little higher with I'll take basically what we gave it, a 65%.
65%. All right.
Now I feel bad. I like totally take the score.
So we have 60. We have 35 from Rachel, 60 from Juice, 65 from Bob. One of you is just a single percentage point away from a perfect ringy-dingy score. And that person is Rachel. This is a 36%. So you really got
damn.
Misogyny.
Wow, that worked out for you.
You convinced yourself to berate yourself for this correct score. I mean,
that is diagnostic and correct. Like that is kind of how I roll.
How many reviews was that, Randy?
53.
How many critic reviews?
Just 53.
Oh, okay, a little small, yeah, but that's a bummer.
That is a bummer.
It's a splat. It's an old splat here for this one with the critics. But let's find out if this is also a splat with the audience. Let's find out. There are over 250,000 reviews from users. So let's go there, and we'll go in reverse order this time. Bob, why don't you kick us off and tell us, what do you think those 250K verified users think this is?
Definitely higher than the critics, I think. I'll take the comedy number as 69, please.
Oh my God. I don't think I have that queued up, so sorry, people.
Oh my God.
Oh, looking for the bomb. Can't find it.
Look, yeah. I mean, I like to stall audibly. That's how I do things. Juice, why don't you kick us off with your score here?
That last one's got me running scared a little bit, so I'm going to drop it just a scotch, but still thinking that the users have to be higher than the critics, so I'll say 55 now.
Oh, that was going to be my number. Dang it.
Oh, 55. All right.
69, dudes!
There it is. There you go, Bob.
Right on time.
Yep. We have timing. All right, Rachel, round us out. What do you think that this audience score is going to be? 250K. Nothing to sneeze at.
People are haters. So I'm going to say 50.
50. All right. So we've got 50, 55, and 69. Let's see. Yeah. So the correct answer is only 7 percentage points off. From Rachel again, this is a 43%.
Oh, a sweep. Oh,
nice.
Wow.
An unfortunate sweep, but a sweep.
Yeah. Yeah.
That celebration is going to be short-lived because it's pretty cruel, rather. I don't know.
Let me have this.
No, it's fair.
Well earned. Yeah, that's just a bummer on those scores. 43 on the users, man.
Again, this is why we close elevator doors in people's faces.
Rotten Tomatoes has warped you. Yeah. So that's it for our Rotten Tomatoes segment, except of course for the negative reviews. Oh wait, I'm sorry. One more thing. There is a critics consensus. Here's how that reads. Buffy the Vampire Slayer's supernatural coming-of-age tale is let down by poor directing and even poorer plotting, though Kristy Swanson and Paul Rubin's game performances still managed to slay. game performances. Okay.
Naked game.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I don't even know if I would say the directing is more. It's just that editing, man. I guess that's part of directing, though. So, yeah. How are movies made? What are we doing here? I don't know.
I will say this was Fran's last film. So.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Oh, really?
This is her second and final. Well, I mean, I guess she's still alive, so it could. But as far as we know, she did Tokyo Pop, which did really well at Cannes, and then she did this, and that was it.
Have you seen Tokyo Pop?
But it looks. I watched the trailer for it in preparation for this, in case it came up, because I wanted to know what it was, and it looks really cute.
It looks rad. Yeah, I want to watch that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize she directed that, so thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
cool.
All right. Last thing before we move on, the Rotten Tomatoes segment is going to end with 1 or 2 negative reviews from critics, just to see how dumb the critics are. Here we go. Despite a promising setup replete with oodles of Valley Girl lingo and cult cliquish quips, Buffy the Vampire Slayer becomes a comedy of missed opportunities and banal action. I don't like that phrase, cliquish quips. It's too much. Too much, man. Who are you trying to impress?
Us.
I am not impressed.
All right. Last one, and then we'll move on. Buffy isn't funny or scary. It's just mediocre, slowly losing interest in itself as Kuzui runs out of imagination.
Rude.
Oh, man. If you saw the picture that is paired with this, it is... Ooh, man.
Is it just pompous. A close-up of a neck covered in hair?
I'm going to say there are thick-rimmed glasses and a black turtleneck involved. So,
oh, boy.
I'm going to let you...
It's either a neck beard or like deeply tubercular, one or the other.
It's a man sprinting towards an elevator screaming, "Hold the door." That's the end.
Exactly. Very that energy.
Yeah. So that's it. That's our Rotten Tomatoes segment. Bob, how about that trivia segment? You got any for us?
Oh, yeah. We got some trivia. Let's do it. All right. Yeah, I got a few points here. Apparently, Seth Green was supposed to be in this movie. He says that he was entirely cut from it, but apparently he does appear just for a couple seconds. He's seen from behind, I guess, so it's kind of hard to tell that it's him, but he's a red-haired vampire that gets kicked by Buffy just outside the gym. Apparently, I didn't pick him out of the bunch, but he's in it.
Wow, no. Huh.
So he actually Buffy redemption.
Yeah. So he actually filmed scenes then. So
yeah, he did.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, there you go.
He was just kind of omnipresent for so long. I don't know.
Big in the 90s.
Yeah. We kind of touched on this, but yeah, Joss Whedon was so frustrated about how his vision was being mishandled and how much of it was being rewritten that he eventually just left set during production and never came back. I think it's interesting that a writer was on set during production. I don't really think that's a common thing that happens. You write your script and it's in the director's hand, and they kind of typically
sold it,
do what they want to do with it. So I don't know.
Were there any reports of whether or not he had a ball that he took when he went home?
I'm sure he did. David Bowie, Mick Jagger, and Carrie Elways were set to make cameos as vampires, but they were cut due to time and budgetary constraints. That would have been cool.
That would have been fucking awesome, man.
Mm-hmm.
I wish one of them had been in Rutger's role. I don't know, man. I think Rutger was misused in this movie.
Yeah, I agree.
I just think that's the case.
Yeah, I agree. Carrie Elways would have been really interesting.
That would have been
he would have brought, you were talking about sort of the sexy element. Yeah. I just rewatched Shadow of the Vampire a couple days ago, and I was like, ooh, I forgot how dreamy he used to be. Yeah. And now I just associate with him being dirty and sweaty and on a bathroom floor, but back in the 90s.
Premise.
Well, have I got a movie for you?
This movie introduced Hilary Swank. That was the first movie she ever did, which
oh wow,
didn't realize.
I thought she was going to have a smaller role when she first showed up, watching the team. I thought she was going to be maybe have something kind of the outsider that they don't quite let into the clique sort of thing. And it turns out she's the ultimate rival of the.
Yeah, she has editor of the school paper energy in that first.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know.
It looks like she has an editorial too ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
According to Jermaine Clement, Paul Rubens took his wig from this film to his cameo on What We Do in the Shadows in 2019. He modeled his vampire look on his infamous mugshot because Rubens said, quote, "It was the coolest I've ever looked."
Oh my God, I love him so much.
Christ. The world is so much bleaker without this man.
Treasure. He was a national treasure.
I love this man.
R.I.P. Rest in power, Paul.
Yeah.
The last bit I have here is, in the original script, apparently Buffy burns down the school gym in which the dance is being held in an effort to destroy the vampires. And then in the show, I guess this is referred to several times, apparently. That's like big Carrie vibes. I kind of wish they had done that. That sounds pretty cool, but it was removed to make the movie feel a little bit lighter, I guess.
I would have given a little bit more weight to, and not that there wasn't already, but like would have just added a little extra oomph to her, fashion sense line where she burns Rutger Hauer's face. It could have been the whole gym. That would have been made for a more epic conclusion as well. Maybe it was a budget thing. I don't know.
Yeah, potentially. But yeah, that's all the trivia I got for this movie. Let's go ahead and talk Cooter of the Week.
You know what a cooter is?
Juice, what is a cooter and why do we hunt them?
Well, Cooter's a character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a cooter, and we want the cooter with the most points. The 5 points of cooterdom are sexual deviance, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall look and attire, and overall patheticness.
The amount of effort that was in your face when you tried to remember those.
It's been a while since I've done it.
You want us to believe that you're not over 30? Get out of here.
You got to really wrap my brain these days. So yes, does anybody have a strong contender for Cooter this week?
I mean, the movie's rife with them, I believe.
Who do you think's number one?
I mean, I think obviously it's Rutger Hauer's character because he has incel tendencies. But I want to throw a dark horse in here, which is the boyfriend's friend.
Oh, the one who wants to borrow her? What could be the problem with him?
And how the boyfriend constantly refers to her as his thing. I think those would be the two of them together Cooter are like a conjoined twin of cooterism.
They're the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of cooterdom.
Yeah.
Damn.
I forgot about that opening scene where she jumps into the convertible and he's like oogling her booty.
Mm-hmm.
It's that,
and then asks to borrow her.
Yeah.
There's those guys. There's also David Arquette. I think stands a pretty strong choice.
Yeah.
Strong chance. Jesus Christ. I think between the three of them, I think every boy in this movie pretty much could be up on the chopping block for this, except for Luke Perry, I guess, out of absence of those things, but. The vibe is Cooter.
He's Cooter adjacent for sure.
Yeah.
The soul patch alone.
So let's run through the boyfriend then. Yeah.
Okay. So sexual deviance and smug arrogance for the thing. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
manipulation. What do we?
Well, also too, he starts hooking up with her best friend or one of her best friends.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be
breaks up with her answering machine. That's cold.
Yeah, pathetic. Yeah.
Pathetic.
Yeah, pathetic and
manipulation and looking at tire.
Manipulation. Probably.
I think he's too dumb to manipulate. I think they 90s.
Both are. Yeah.
And the attire
for
is
that
just
April O'Neil jacket, that's fire. But
well, that's not her. That's not.
No, I know.
They're not
her.
her.
No, I was saying attire in general for the 90s. But
oh my God. It's like a high school yearbook junior high yearbook for me. I would I saw it was a little bit of a mirror in a way that was both exciting and troubling.
So I think the boyfriend that hits enough. So I would say sexual deviance, pathetic, and smug arrogance. I think he kind of hits on those.
Mm-hmm.
let's see what. So we were saying head vampire Mang. He's got patheticness. His little tantrum.
He's a little bit also, Jeremiah Sand there going on.
Yeah,
terrible at floating convincingly. That's pretty pathetic.
That's a look.
Yeah, it's got a look going. Manipulation for sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's mind controlling and like snuggling with her in a teddy bear in bed. That's weird and manipulative.
Yeah, that is weird.
The act, like a character who is a vampire, is like at least 95% chance going to be a sexual deviant in the first place. So
yeah, that's fair.
I think that's a foregone conclusion.
His line, I said it before, have you ripened so fast?
That should do it right there, just that.
Yeah.
He thinks the lady doth ripen quite quickly.
That's a good bump for us to use later on.
You have no power here.
So I think he checks enough. This movie is just full of them, isn't it?
It is.
Maybe even Paul Rubin's character, probably at some point.
I don't know if we get enough.
I get the impression
no.
I feel like we get like him in bits and starts, like where they kind of set some stuff up for him that just never happens. Like there's some sort of tension between him and Lothos.
There's a Smithers Burns thing happening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like they don't really expound upon it. It's just sort of like I don't know, but it's not even quite that because he's resentful, which Smithers would never be resentful. But like I don't know, like he acts resentful at sometimes, and then other times they're like sharing a laugh together at the expense of all like an evil laugh, like an evil cackle together.
It's kind of like an in between Renfield like type of character, except he's an actual vampire. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to approach him from a Cooter perspective. I don't think he really is fleshed enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we definitely got.
Although he is based on his mugshot.
That is a Cooter move, but I respect that Cooter move.
Yeah. Right.
Is there anybody else?
Yes,
we could talk about Luke Perry looking attire for sure. Can't rock the soul patch.
I mean, he shaves it off.
Well, okay.
That's the greatest catharsis in this whole fucking movie. Is thank God.
Is a human plain bagel. Like he's too bland to be a Cooter.
Yeah. He's got very little going on. He's not even a mechanic by the end of this thing. So
yeah. All right. We got a couple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's some coots in the house.
Good work.
Rutger and the boyfriends.
Lock
them up.
Lock them up.
Band. The boyfriends. I would listen. I would buy your record on cassette tape for sure.
Great. We're terrible.
Fantastic.
Only cassette tape.
Juice, I know you got a hard out here in a few minutes, so let's skip what we've been watching. We did get a voicemail that I definitely want to get to. Make sure we have time for. We put up the Janus signal last week, and he did call in. So let's jump over into our hotline screams. Yeah, all right. If you guys are listening and would like to call in and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, you can hit us up at 904-638-3231. We called out for our boy Hugh last week, and he did oblige. And let's hear what Hugh has to say.
Yeah, it's Hugh calling. You guys last week threw up the Janus signal, so I'm responding. I did watch Shaun of the Dead. Never seen it before. You guys are correct. That is a 5-star movie all the way. There's a lot of coincidences last week's show. I was actually called Snake Hips in high school. My age now, it's more like Snail Hips. But that's how that goes. Soju said he pictured me looking like Sam Elliott. The other coincidence there is I was Sam Elliott's stunt double on the movie Tombstone. In my mind, yeah, you can look at Sam Elliott, little Brad Pitt, Pierce Bronson, and Matthew McConaughey all rolled into one. In reality, it's probably more a little bit of Radar O'Reilly from MASH, the Skipper from Gilligan's Island, Pillsbury Doughboy, and a little bit of Martha Stewart thrown in there.
These preferences.
Want to thank G Baby for the kind words and for your Valentine's Day prompt. He mentioned something about an old flame from the 70s, so I've got a story. Of course, it's 1870. On a Valentine's Day in 1870, I went on a date with Mary Todd Lincoln. Don't know if you know your history or not, but she was a little nuts. I knew Abe from years earlier. I did press for him. He wanted his signature look to be a knitted beanie, and I convinced him to go with the top hat. When he ran for president, he wanted his slogan to be, "I'm the tall one." And I convinced him to go with Honest Abe. He read me his first draft of the Gettysburg Address, and he started it by saying, 87 years ago. I told him, I said, "You've got to punch that up." And I suggested 407 years ago. Next Valentine's Day, I'll tell you about the fling I had on the Titanic. Let me tell you, it gives a whole new meaning to the term going down on the Titanic. What do the Titanic and the movie The Sixth Sense have in common? Icy dead people.
Oh my God. Oh
Keep
my
on chilling.
Shame on you.
Dude, the Janus lore is my favorite part of this whole show.
Jane is coming in with the history jokes.
Jesus Christ. I dated Mary Todd Lincoln. She was difficult.
Oh, damn, my boy Hugh.
My cheese
always
hurts.
killing it.
Fantastic.
Woo.
He's the 1800s Don Draper, is what I'm understanding.
We can't over abuse that Hugh Janus signal, though. You know, we need to give him time to work on those historical bits.
Like the cicada, he only comes out intermittently, but when he does, you know it.
Did he invent the word yabos?
Maybe Janus.
That's
a better lore. That's a much better lore.
Oh man,
Joss Whedon. Yeah,
I think we just found the angle for our 500th episode. On the hunt for the first yabo.
Straight chilling documentary.
Get Attenborough on there. Yeah, get Richard Attenborough to voice it over. It'll be great.
Thanks for calling in, Janus.
Yeah, man. Always a pleasure hearing from you, boy, Hugh Janus. Hope you're doing well, man. Again, if you guys are listening and would like to call in, leave a voicemail, you can do so at 904-638-3231. Do you guys have any prompts you want to throw out there for next week?
I might have one that relates to next week. So next week, we are covering a horror Western, which we don't have a lot of those. So I wanted to pose the question of if you could have like a big boom, or at least, you know, like some representation of some film subgenres getting some like horror spins, I guess. You know, which one like would you choose, or what would you like to see kind of get a bit of a horror spin if you could have some? So yeah, I mean,
that's a good question, because there's so many horror movies that do attempt stuff like that. I don't know, man.
One thing that
like
came
the rom-com
out,
is Shaun of the Dead. Like, you know, like
I remember when was it Overlord came out, and I was like, oh, cool, you know, a kind of war horror, because there's already so many elements in war movies that I think there should be maybe more elements of the horrors of war being represented through some creature or something like that. I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
And we did kind of just see that, you know, we got Godzilla -1, and you know that always has elements of that. So, you know, something like that. And
Saving Private Dracula.
There you go.
Yes. Crowdfunding starts tomorrow.
There was something that they did in The Sopranos is they produced a movie in the TV show, and it was this like slasher movie mixed with like a gangster movie. I thought that would be kind of cool if somebody tried to do something kind of like that. Not necessarily like slasher, but you know, make a spooky
horror movie,
mob kind of movie. Yeah, that could be somewhat interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good one, man. Yeah, call in. What subgenre out there needs to be blended with horror, or what would you like to see? Hit us up.
Sounds good to me.
We're going to be back next week talking about Bone Tomahawk from 2015. Patreon pick. This one was chosen by Nate S. So look forward to that.
Thanks, Nate. I'm excited for that one. Yeah,
that'll be a good one.
Got a good lineup this month, man. Shaun of the Dead, Buffy, Bone Tomahawk. Woo.
Yeah, we got some good.
And From Beyond was there too.
Yes, it was.
The people spoke. Okay, that's what they voted on.
Elections have consequences, Juice. Elections have consequences.
Don't I know it?
Yes, we all do. Rachel, thanks so much for sitting in with us again. It's always so awesome having you on. We really do appreciate it. And make sure you let everybody know one more time before we go where they can find all your podcasts.
All right. Well, thank you again for inviting me. I always have so much fun with all of you guys. Randy, I hope we're still friends. I love you. Okay, good. No, but I really appreciate the invite. I had so much fun and I love talking about Buffy with you guys. And I hope to see you guys again someday soon. If you want to find me online, you can follow me at ZG Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, all those things for the podcast. For me personally, I'm at Reachy Pants. So slide into the DMs and say hi.
Right on.
But not in the elevator. God damn you.
Not.
I mean,
keep your
on the elevator.
fucking distance.
Listen, it's like a teeny tiny room with a creeper. Come on. It's like a van, but smaller.
A horizontal or vertical van.
One of those vertical vans that are sweeping the nation.
That's right. That's correct.
Thank you, Rachel, for joining us and bringing the positive perspective this week. I really appreciate that.
Hell yeah. Check out Rachel and all of her podcasts everywhere you get your podcasts. Tune in next week. We'll be back again with Bone Tomahawk. You can find us on all the social media outlets. Just search Straight Chilling Podcast. We'll pop right up. And if you would like to join our Slack channel, just hit us up on one of those social media outlets. Let us know you'd like to join, and I'll send you a link so that you can. And until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
How's that for a slice of fried gold?